Hey guys, what's going on? You're listening to WSOU. I am Nick, and I'm here with Geoff Tate of Operation Mindcrime. What's going on, man?
Wow, you said that so clear and sharp and fast. It was fantastic.
How are
I'm
you?
doing great, Nick. Nice to
Awesome.
be on your show.
Of course. Now, some really awesome stuff going on with you recently. The second of the three album trilogy you have going on, coming out September 23rd, Resurrection. Now, I've got a lot of interesting questions about this because of how big of, it's not just an album, it's the middle part of a trilogy. So the first question I have, obviously, is following it up with the first one, The Key, you put out last year. Give me a little bit of background on this album since it is a concept. Where does this connect with the first one? What's the whole backstory here?
Well, the trilogy is it's a story told in 3 acts, which is pretty standard. Most films you see are 3-act presentations,
Right.
And so this is the second act, so to speak. This picks up where the first album left off, and kind of is at the well, I can't give away too much of the story. It kind of ruins it because it's a bit of a mystery,
Right.
you know?
Okay.
But I definitely highly suggest if when you get both the albums, you put them on back to back and listen to them in order.
Right.
And a lot of things become very clear at that point.
Okay. Now, my big question is, was this something that you wrote all together out at once, or an idea that you've been constantly putting together over the time?
No, it was written all at once and then recorded all at once and then put out with a year in between.
Okay. So the third one is technically done then too?
Yeah, it's just waiting to be shipped off to the record company.
Okay. So how do you go about writing, especially writing literally 3 albums, kind of over a very short span of time? What's it takes a lot of people quite a long time just to write one album. How do you go about writing 3 in such a manner?
Well, it's something that I probably wouldn't attempt all the time, but it was one of those things that just hit me,
Right.
And I've learned over the years that when you have an idea, you just go with it,
Right.
Take it, you work on it as long as you possibly can before you run out of ideas, before the energy leaves you, before the muse takes a break, and so that's kind of what the game plan I follow. And luckily, I got a lot of people on board to help me out with this recording. I put together a wonderful group of people that played on all the records. The same group of people played on all the records. So that really helps, keep a consistency to it. And but it was a big brainstorm,
Right.
Just really working with wonderful people who were able to translate my musical ideas into beautiful and wonderful performances.
Right. And now that was another question. So this is basically, it is a band, but it's your project. There's not a full band behind it, because I know you like to do a lot of collaborations with a lot of other artists on these projects. So there's not like, a set lineup.
There's not a set lineup.
Right. Okay.
Which would be really hard to do because a lot of these players are very much in demand. They play with a lot of people. So it'd be impossible to keep everybody on board. But it's great. Like just John Ware, who played bass on the album, Dave Ellefson played bass on the album, Kelly Gray played guitar and bass on the record, Scott Motton played guitar and bass on the record. So everybody kind of doubles up and does different things,
Right. Okay. So when you go out on the road for this, who should we expect? Is there, a touring lineup, or is it kind of a revolving door with the people that have had a part in it?
Yeah, it's kind of an open thing, really. And I couldn't tell you who's going to be in the band yet when we do tour, but
all right.
Simply because our dates are so far off in the distance.
Okay. So there's no touring for this in the slightly near future?
It's going to be in March when we hit the States.
Okay. Not too bad. And that's going to be a headliner tour, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. So we can expect to see that then. Now, what kind of how do you go about, since the album is a story? How would you go about setting up a live set? Obviously, are you gonna try to put any kind of play the album in its entirety kind of thing, or just sprinkle things within what you already have been playing?
Well, I tend to find in my experience that audiences need time
To soak it in.
to soak in the music, new music. And so I don't like to hit them with too much new stuff. A few songs off a new album, each album is, I think, really quite enough. And then I've got, so many records to choose from, and a lot of material. So I'm never at a shortage for that. But I think it's kind of a weird thing because, as a writer, songwriter, musician, you're very excited about your new project and you'd love to play the whole thing.
Exactly.
But the audience, they can't take that much new stuff,
Mm-hmm.
So you have to kind of give little bits and pieces to them over time. But then over time, you can add more and more and more. And I hope that after the third album is out, I can do sort of a limited live engagement, maybe record it, something like that.
Right. Now, so how do you feel about, bands playing full albums? So you're not really for that necessarily?
Oh, I am. And
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah. I've done it many times.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Now, the thing with that I wanted to know, too, is since you have such a big back catalog, as you keep adding newer music to it, are there, less spots to play the older stuff, or do you make sure that, you get your certain amount of the set is, your really heavy hitters that, made, years and years back that, people want to hear, or do you like keeping, fresh stuff in there as well? So it's entertaining for, the band as well as the fans.
Probably a bit of both.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of a balance, I guess.
Right.
Probably more, I guess it's not a perfect balance because I probably tend to play more older material.
Okay.
But older is, I put out an album almost every year or two, so was old.
Very true. And that was something I saw too, is you made a comment about how you want to be trying to put music out. I think it was like every 6 months or something like that.
I'd like to, yeah.
So is
Hard
that,
to do that.
that's, I'm assuming at the writing 3 albums like in this kind of manner must be difficult to be trying to put something out every 6 months. Is that, I'm assuming you're writing for whatever comes next after the third? Yeah. Of course. So
well, it's really, the record companies aren't set up to do that.
Right.
They're 1 year in between records is quite good for them, I think.
Yeah, because that was something I found interesting that you made that comment, since now, obviously back, in like the 70s or so, bands were putting out 2 albums a year. Now it's, the 1 to 2 year kind of thing. Do you think 6 months is too small almost? Because I feel like people take time sometimes to absorb what you already put out, or you like just keep, because I also know people like, oh, all right, I've heard this a bunch of times, I want new music already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think there's a standard, Nick. I think it's kind of up to the individual. And you also remember back in the 70s, most bands didn't tour like bands nowadays do.
True, that's right.
I tour in 60 countries.
Wow.
Around the world. And bands back in the 70s, maybe they played the United States, maybe they did 30 dates, and that was considered a gigantic tour,
Right.
And we do 1,000 dates a year. It's insane. Yeah, people just, it's a whole different thing,
Right. So in this case, we can expect the third one coming out probably like a year from now.
Oh, yeah, it definitely come out a year from now.
Okay. So just to give us a little bit of a timeline.
Yeah.
And now with, I always wanted to know, because you have such an incredible voice, it's very well known. How do you keep yourself, especially with, the touring that you said you guys do, how do you keep yourself in such top performance shape?
Practice a lot.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it just, your instrument, you
exactly.
You gotta practice it. Yeah. And so for me, I play a lot of keyboards and practice the saxophone every day and sing every day, and just keep up on it.
Right, because I feel like if you look at a lot of the old bands from around that era where you were starting out, a lot of them, some guys still have it, some guys kind of lost it, and they're still out there. And people have different opinions on people still doing it if they don't have it. But you're definitely in that tier where you definitely still have the pipes and you're bringing it every day.
Oh, good. That's good to know.
Of course. Now, I know that obviously you're doing a lot with the music, but you also have a lot of other things on the side. I was wondering if, like you said, you're a big storyteller in the music. Is there ever the chance that maybe you would try to take these stories, maybe go into adding a movie and then putting it to this music as the soundtrack?
Well, that could be. Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
Since
perhaps in the future, yeah.
Right, because it's such a big concept, the 3 albums across. I'm sure you could probably make a pretty awesome movie about the backstory.
Yeah, probably could.
That would be something. Is that something you'd think about doing or thought about?
Well, yes and no. It's something that isn't in my immediate plan, but
right.
Could be in the future. Yeah.
Okay. Because that was what I was thinking. Like, since you're such a storyteller, if movies or actually writing a novel is something that you would be interested in.
Well, writing a novel is got to be a labor of love.
Oh yeah,
it's a lot of work
for sure.
Like the thing with music is you might be telling a story, but you're not telling. You're not writing every aspect of the story. The music does a lot of interpretation for you,
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in novel writing, you have a lot of words you got to come up with.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it's a special talent.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And the thing I wanted to know, too, about this album is you like to tie it into, like, the older kind of concepts that you have. You like to, every album is kind of a concept in itself, but this is the trilogy. So what kind of comes out after this? Are you going to start a whole nother story, or are you going to kind of build, maybe like a sequel to the trilogy in a way?
A sequel to it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, Nick, exactly what I'm going to be doing yet.
Right.
It's still quite a ways away,
Right.
I still have another couple of years before I'm actually finished with the trilogy. Maybe in the next year or so I'll get a new idea to jump off onto for my next project. I don't know.
Right, because I saw that you said, obviously today is a very good time to be writing, concepts with all that's going on, especially, kind of where you were going with the concept for the trilogy here. So there's definitely probably a lot to be writing about.
Oh, there always is. Yeah, there's never a shortage of inspiration in life. There's so many different things to look at and to comment on, and things that you find interesting, to talk about.
Right.
And especially, I suppose, now, because we're all communicating so much, with the communication technology that we've invented and we all use so readily now. It's drastically changing the world,
Oh, for sure.
And it's an amazing time to be alive, and it's an amazing time to be involved in art, and there's a lot to conversate about, really.
Oh, for sure. And another thing was, since you've been doing it for so long, you've seen, the genre itself change so many times, especially with technology. How do you feel about the technology, with receiving music now compared to how it was then? Do you think the accessibility is a good thing, or do you think it hurts it?
Well, having been in the genre before we used words like genre,
right.
I do have a kind of a unique, perspective on things, I think. I think having access to all the music in the world at your fingertips is fantastic.
Right.
I love it. I did come from an era where, musicians and writers were paid for their work.
Right.
So I'm of that mindset that that's a good thing. Not only did, record sales pay the artists and the writers of the content. It also supported record companies and all the people that they employed, and it employed and empowered families. Once people started downloading things, of course, then that took the economy out of the industry. Therefore, EMI, for example, our record company, couldn't afford to keep, Joe and his family employed anymore, so they had to go look for jobs elsewhere.
Right.
And it drastically affected, an industry. It basically gutted it,
Right.
So I'm for paying for music and paying for content. I believe in that. But at the same time, I sure like to have access to it all.
Right.
And have the ability to buy it if I want it. I think that's great.
Do you think that if you were starting now, it would be easier or more difficult from the aspect of from where you were starting?
Well, that's a great question, and I think it's impossible to answer.
Right.
Simply because I'm not starting now.
Yeah.
So I really don't have a clue as to what young musicians starting out experience in this.
Right.
But I imagine that they have. I feel like they're probably very frustrated because it certainly is not easy.
Oh, for sure.
It's very, 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 very difficult, because to get any kind of to build an audience, you have to play,
Yeah.
You have to release material, but to get an audience enough to support you, you have to play a lot of shows in a lot of different places around the world, and getting there is nearly impossible because it's so expensive. It's
Right.
prohibitive,
Yeah.
And so, then to get people to hear your music, there's a 1 in a zillion chance that they're going to hear it. And are they going to pay for it? That's another zillion chance you take. So there's no economy to support it,
Right.
On the other hand, got people my age were lucky that we started at a different time, in a different place where, you could garner an audience through touring. You could go on the road and tour. Because the economy of the industry paid for that, and there were people that were willing to put their money down and pay for the art, Nowadays, people kind of don't want to pay so much for art.
Right. Now, do you feel that because of all that, that's kind of brought the death of the rock star and kind of an end to, writing timeless music? Like you hear a song like Jet City Woman or Silent Elasticity, and it still stands up today as, a very memorable song. Whereas, do you think that still kind of happens, or do you think technology and the accessibility kind of killed that?
Well, I certainly don't think technology killed it. Technology is just simply a tool,
Right.
But and accessibility didn't either. I'm glad the rock star is dead.
Really?
People of my age, that rock star is a derogatory term.
Okay.
You called somebody a rock star, and that was an insult.
Right.
You're a musician. That's what you wanted to be, and that's what you studied to be, and you practiced your craft, and you got good enough to be called a musician. A rock star was simply somebody that was a celebrity, somebody that had some cult of personality. Maybe they were a complete screw-up, and but that made them famous. Well, that's a rock star,
Right.
But an actual person that could write a song, a beautiful song, or a aggressive, interesting song, or perform it, or had a beautiful voice and could sing it or play it, that was a musician.
Right.
Anyway, I guess to answer your question, it's just a different world with a different value system now, and it's something that you can't really pine for the good old days. You have to adapt your life to fit in the time that you live in now, and find a way of working with that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's about all I have. Is there anything you want to say wrapping up?
I'd say thanks, Nick, for the interview.
Of course. Well, thank you for doing
good
it.
questions. I really appreciate that. And nice conversation.
Of course. Thank you very much. Hopefully, we'll talk again soon. Maybe next time when the third one comes out.
Excellent idea.
All right.
Okay.